It can both attack and defend. Indispensable when storming fortified enemy positions, and one of the best in covering infantry. The tank is an integral element of war, directly associated with heavy combat operations. And although the realities of modern warfare, particularly the widespread use of FPV drones, have affected the effectiveness of tanks, these heavy armored vehicles have not lost their relevance at all. Amidst information that Ukraine, for the first time since the start of the war, might gain an advantage in tanks, on the front line of combat is the perfect time to delve into the tank fleet of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Despite the fact that before the war, Russia had the largest stockpile of tanks in the world. According to Forbes, the Ukrainian Defense Forces, for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion, might have an advantage over the occupiers in the use of tanks.
For the first time since 2022, Ukraine might have a tank advantage over Russia.
This does not refer to the entire line of combat contact, but to specific sections of the front. Such a tank advantage by the Ukrainian Armed Forces is achieved through the use of drones, which drive Russian tanks kilometers away from the front line and force them to operate only from covered camouflage positions away from the front.
Russian tanks are strategically forced to fire from camouflage positions many miles from the front line. In essence, they are used as inaccurate howitzers rather than as combat vehicles as their designers intended.
And here it should be noted, a tank is primarily an offensive weapon. On the front line, it is a priority target for the enemy, a sort of magnet attracting all the enemy's shells and fire. In such realities, any tank possesses the following main advantages: enhanced armor protection, firepower, and mobility. The assault personnel use the tank as a heavy mobile shield. And since this shield is operated by people, the protection of the tank crew's lives is an unequivocal priority. As of today, the armor of any tank reliably protects the crew from automatic and machine gun fire, shell fragments, and anti-personnel mines.
The main function of a tank is not even so much to provide fire support for the infantry or participating in breakthroughs of defensive lines, as much as this function itself preserves the lives of the crew. And after the crew, all other functions are secondary.
Currently, Ukraine has a very wide range of tanks. The basis with which Kyiv repelled the invaders' attack in the first months of the war was the Soviet-made T-64 tank. The development of this heavyweight began in 1960. By 1967, at the Kharkiv Design Bureau of Mechanical Engineering, the combat weight of the T-64 is 36 tons. It is armed with a 125mm gun, and ammo of 36 shells. The tank has a 700 horsepower engine, allowing it to accelerate up to 64 km/h. The range is 500 kilos. Over time, German Leopards, American Abrams, British Challengers, and light French tank joined their Soviet counterparts. AMX-10. In all this variety, there are both advantages and significant.
The corresponding training is required. Drawbacks. The creation of logistic bases for crews would have been much simpler, but as it stands, we are talking about having Challengers, Abrams, and Leopards in service. And therefore, each tank has its own specifics, primarily in terms of maintenance.
One of the advantages of Western-style tanks is crew protection and armor. However, the approaches to protection differ for each. In the case of the German Leopard, the designers focused on durability. The combat weight is impressive, ranging from 50 to 63 tons, depending on the armor upgrades. The tank is armed with a 120mm cannon. The engine power is 1500 horsepower. The maximum speed on the highway is a respectable 72 km/h. Off-road speed is 55 km. The range is 500 km. The barrel lifespan is 700 shots. The turret and hull are welded on the Leopard. The design of the armored hull and turret uses third-generation composite materials for protection. The tank's combat compartment is lined inside with Kevlar padding, which stops fragments in case of penetration. Main armor.
There is a concept known as spaced armor. That is, different layers of protection are located at a significant distance from each other. The armor provides effective protection. In other words, the tank is practically invulnerable. This enhances the crew's survivability and accordingly its use in real combat conditions. Even during counteraction and accordingly, from the enemy's side, this involves the use of tank guns and ATGMs.
While British designers of the Challengers also focused on heavy armor during development, the Americans took a slightly different approach. Abrams tanks are less armored compared to Leopards, but they incorporate a very interesting crew protection technology in case of a direct hit.
In the Abrams, for example, there is implemented, I have a system that shields the crew from, for instance, the ammunition. The ammunition is located in that part of the turret, or again, it is positioned in such a way that in the event of an explosion, blowout panels activate on the outside. That is, the main blast wave does not go inside the tank. It goes to the external pedal of the wings. It goes to the external pedal of the wings. It acts through these panels into the open space.
In turn, the French light tank AMX-10 seriously lags behind its foreign counterparts in terms of armor protection and crew safety. The fact is, the AMX-10 is not a typical armored vehicle. The main difference is that instead of tracks, the tank has a wheeled base, which is why it is often called either an infantry fighting vehicle, a reconnaissance vehicle, or a light tank. The French vehicle is significantly lighter than its counterparts, so a slightly different tactic needs to be applied with the AMX. The tank crew should operate based on the principle of maneuver. Fire maneuver. The wheeled base provides high mobility for this vehicle. The AMX, as we mentioned earlier, is significantly lighter, weighing only 16 tons. The French vehicle is armed with a 105 mm gun, has a 300 HP engine, an 85 km/h max speed, and a range to cover 800 km. But crew survivability is not the only difference between Western and Soviet tanks. Most modern tanks, or at least their predecessors, were developed during the so-called Cold War era. The state, as the customer, clearly understood whom, and more importantly, where their tank would have to confront. And while Soviet developers focused on simplicity in production and maximum firing range, the West emphasized technical equipment and accuracy.
The heavyweights of Western tanks, in most cases, have much higher accuracy than Soviet ones, although the Soviets had superiority specifically in firing range. This is due to the fact that Soviet tanks were planned to be used in large open spaces in the steppes, whereas Western tanks, for example, German Leopards, are mainly tanks that were planned to be used in hilly terrain or in areas where there isn't much open space.
Friends, that's all for now. Don't forget to write in the comments about which types of weapons you would like to learn more about. Also, like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next episodes of Arsenal.